Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talk About It Tuesday. We are kicking off a new series, and we're here to just spend a couple of minutes talking with you about what we talked about on Sunday. And I'm Georgianne.
I'm Elisa.
And this new series. Okay, we've said it a couple different ways. I'm going to try to get it right. How to be not okay.
I think it's supposed to be how to not be okay.
I don't think so. The sermon graphic says not okay. I don't know. Either way, it's the same message.
Yeah.
So if you're not sure, it's okay. We're right along with you. So this week we had a message from Brandon. This series is going to be taking us through the book of Lamentations. And I think I would say that overall we're probably more familiar with our Bibles in the New Testament, but this is a book in the Old Testament. And we're going to be going through the entire thing.
Yeah. Lamentations is this book that was most likely written by the prophet Jeremiah during this period of exile where Israel was spread out among these different nations and many of them were being hurt and harmed. Babylon had basically taken over what they counted as most precious, their homeland. Mm-hmm. And so as a nation, as a community, they're going through this grieving process. And then we get the book of Lamentations where people are expressing that grief to God in really honest language. It is poetic. It's a book of poetry. And so I think it's important that we understand the genre when we're studying different books of the Bible. But one of the things I love most about Lamentations is just that brutal honesty that we get. I think a lot of times we feel like there's certain things that we can't say to God, or if I express this to him, he's going to be mad or hurt or upset or angry.
Like he doesn't already know.
Right, like he can't already tell exactly how we're feeling.
Yeah.
But then in Lamentations, we get this just like raw, amazing, beautiful honesty. And I think for me, that gives me permission to be honest with God about my emotions too.
Sure. So the word Lamentations, it's a book of lament. I mean, that's not a word that we really commonly use. But I think maybe a more modern definition would be, despair, groaning, grieving. Yeah. So that's really a summary of what the book is. So what about Sunday? What do you want to unpack from that?
Yeah, I thought Brandon did a great job handling this message, kind of setting up for us what Lamentations is all about, and then just diving straight into chapter 1. And one of the images that stuck out the most to me was the story he told of going fishing and catching a bird's nest. And I think we need to clarify, because whenever he was telling the story, I was like, wow,
I'm not a fisherman.
Me neither. And I was like, how did a bird's nest end up in the water? But like, okay, that's cool. Like, I thought he had caught an actual literal bird's nest.
Maybe he could have.
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
But do you know what a bird's nest is?
Well, I sort of like
in fishing
inferred from what he was showing that it was like this balled up like fishing line, or
yeah, it's basically when like the fishing line just gets really tangled and messed up, and it's called a bird's nest. And so either way, like whether I was thinking of that or a physical bird's nest, that
either way, it's a big knot.
Exactly, like that.
It's a big knot of stuff
being just like knotted, tangled up. You can't really tell one from the other. Like he talked about how so often that's how our emotions are, and what we end up doing in that situation is masking it. So what has that looked like for you?
Oh man, I think that has taken on different coping in different parts of my life. One thing that I've talked about on here and in my group quite a bit is journaling. I mean, I'm not really a writer, and I'm not a verbal processor either. So like sometimes I really can't figure out what it is that is the root of the problem until I like just write it out to God. And I've probably been journaling now for about 5 years. So I'm 43, wow. So it's pretty recent, right? So I would say, journaling has definitely been, and literally just like writing out prayers to God, and then suddenly it comes out and I'm like, I didn't even know that was there.
Yeah, no doubt. I would say journaling's something I do too. Probably for the last decade or so, I've journaled. And similar to you, like that's just a space where I can process thoughts, feelings, emotions. Yep. I think it forces me to slow down enough to actually think about what I'm feeling.
Yes.
And that's been really helpful for me. A couple other things that have been really helpful for me when it comes to kind of untangling that bird's nest is spending time in community with friends. I know you and I have gotten lunch a million times and just sat and sometimes we don't even have the words to say that express how we're feeling, but just feeling understood and feeling known. And then I go to counseling about every other week. And so for me, that's also a place where someone else is able to kind of take a look into my bird's nest. Who's objective, doesn't, isn't really like in my personal life at all. And say like, hey, have you thought about pulling this string? Or do you notice this over here? Or I remember you talking about this. What about that? And that for me has been like one of the most helpful practices when it comes to understanding my own emotions and feeling safe enough to process them. Yeah. And then ultimately bringing them to God, because I think for me, I feel like I need to have it untangled before I can bring it to God.
Yeah. I would say definitely, like, I can relate to that because, I have 2 accountability partners and we meet every week. And there's been times where I've had to talk through things with them similar to what you said about counseling, and they'll say like, have you dealt with that with God? Have you prayed about it? Have you repented for that? Have you asked God to change your character instead of changing your circumstances? And I think, we really need people in our lives to be able to have those honest conversations with us and to be willing to hear it.
Yeah, no doubt. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of this series. I think learning how to not be okay, learning how to grieve well is something that every single one of us needs to figure out, and we get to do that together. And
I think, that we, especially like with social media, we just sometimes feel this pressure that we need to just put on a happy face. And I don't think God feels that way about it. He can handle our grief and sadness. And the specific thing Brandon said was God sits with us in our pain. And I think we know that he's always there with us. But when you're so, I guess, like in the midst of it, sometimes we literally just forget that.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and I think for a lot of us, we're more comfortable with handling it, showing this, again, that happy face, showing that mask.
Or a brave front.
Totally. I'm strong. I can do it. I can figure it out on my own. But ultimately, when that's the path we choose, we limit other people's ability to see God at work in us and through us, in our suffering and in our brokenness.
That's so good.
And so I think for me, like, there have been times where I've shown up here and been like, I'm just not having a good day. I'm struggling. And sometimes there's a risk associated with that, right? Anytime we show vulnerability, there's risk that comes alongside that. But I know for me, I would so much rather allow people to see God at work, even in my brokenness and in my weakness, than have anyone think that like, oh, Lisa's strong, she's got it all together. I don't always.
That's powerful. That's like a mini sermon right there.
But I don't always have that figured out. But I'm hopeful that like this series can help each of us take steps towards that.
Yes, that's good. Thanks for sharing that. All right, well, so we're going to be in this, I think 5 weeks? Is that right?
5 more, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be here for a little while, so camp out. Groups can get your Lamentations journal if you haven't already gotten that, or I think Brandon said you can find it on Amazon too, right?
Yep, and we actually have some left over, and so you may be able to purchase them from us too.
All right, so spend some time reading. If you didn't read chapter 1, go ahead and read it again. We did read it here together, but sometimes when you look and are able to make notes, you let it sink in a little bit further.
Yeah.
And then if you haven't watched Sunday's message, you can catch that on YouTube or Facebook. And we'll be here Sunday. Oh gosh, the times again. 9 and 10:30 on Sunday. And Tuesdays here at 8 o'clock. All right. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.